Liz Miller, VP and Principal Analyst here at Constellation Research. And I want to talk about assets, very specifically digital assets. These are the images, the audio, the video, the demos, the Instagram graphics, the illustrations, everything. When we start to think about how to manage digital assets, of course, we come to one of my favorite categories that I get to cover, digital asset management. And it's not just because I get to say, damn, okay, it partially is that, but it's also because I think that DAM is one of the most underestimated technologies and categories that we talk about in enterprise technology. It is the last mile of experience delivery, but it's often the first idea that brings IT and experience teams together in a way that makes sense for everyone. What do I mean by that? DAM and DAM maturity typically starts with the first big idea, which can start in IT, it can start in digital teams, it can start in marketing, it can start in sales and service. And the idea is that we've got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff. We've created a lot of stuff. We have logos, we have presentations, we have images that someone created for a campaign that were so memorable that people keep coming back to and people want to use in lots of different forms and formats. Let's take the idea of logos. You've got the white one, you've got the one that's got all the colors, you've got the ones that maybe have a gradient. Maybe you have the one that's perfect for social media, but you also have the one that's perfect for PowerPoint presentations. You have the one that sales puts in their emails. That iteration, that articulation of that logo can show up in lots of different places. You know what people have a hard time doing? Finding the logo. So the first big idea is set. And that is, we need someplace to put all of this. That first idea, typically when you start to think about it in DAM terms, then we're starting to look at DAM for brand assurance. How do we find a place and a space where we can store all of this, where we can put a logo that has all of the final iterations of the logo and we can pin it to the very top of the interface, where everyone can have access to, let's say, the box, the Dropbox, the SharePoint, but you can organize your assets in a way that makes sense for the users, makes sense for the creators, and makes sense for that final application. And you are wrapping that governance around it. You're wrapping the controls. You have version controls. You have storage. You are looking for consistency at that point. You also start to look for search. And in this big idea, number one, when it comes to brand assurance, all the teams involved are also looking to eliminate redundancy and they're looking to eliminate brand obsolescence. Let's get that last iteration that we don't use anymore out of there. Let's archive the old logo because we have the new one. We start to think of brand and storage synonymously. And how do we find those digital destinations that work towards that? But as that continues to happen, as the brand matures, as the organization matures, as IT matures, we start to realize that something is missing when we think of that in that first idea. And what we are missing out on is brand security. And we need to take that next step in DAM. And that's when we start moving into what are truly digital asset management solutions. What are DAMs? This is where the metadata comes in. This is where we start to look at versioning and versioning controls. This is where we start to really look to the platform to drive derivatives. Once we upload something, can it autonomously size, format? I want every type of format that a user could want, but I also want every crop people could want. Do we want the whole image? Do we just want the product? Do we want the product and the hero? Do we want all the products? Do we need to be in seasonal backgrounds? What different type of size do we need for social media versus a presentation versus our digital advertising? We start to look at the archival capabilities so that storage is no longer the focus. We can actually get a lot more sophisticated in what goes into, say, the lower cost cold storage. The archiving capabilities start to become that much more important. In this second big idea, when we start to look for brand security in our DAM solutions, we're also talking about controls. And we're talking about control not only of the brand, but of the users and of the rights and of the applications. We want to be able to have selective versioning. Not everything needs a million sizes. I don't need 1,000 different iterations and revisions of that one asset. I might just need one. I can set those controls. I can set up auto tagging. That's where we start to get to that brand idea number 2. But even that leads to a more sophisticated thought. Even that leads to the next big idea. That big idea number 3 shifts from brand security, where everything is about control, and it moves into brand safety. Is the asset usable? Do we have the rights to that asset? How are we autonomously adding metadata that means not only insight and information for our business, but also for our customers? It's built for purpose, for experience delivery. These DAMs, these more robust, the bigger tools, the enterprise tools, that's when we're really looking for AI to really become that autonomous force that is not only making sure that our metadata is uniform, but that we are adding important insights around model or favorite model for a campaign. We're looking at the analytics to drive better utilization, better understanding, better delivery of our assets. We're looking for that CDN, that's for sure. We're looking for those controls, and we're looking for that AI. And that's what brings me to what we release as our digital asset management shortlist. This is where the smart comes in. This is where the AI comes in. This is when we're not just looking to store. We're not just looking to have brand assurance. We're not looking just for controls like what we'd need in brand security. We're opening that up. We're opening that up far beyond. And we're really looking for those tools and solutions that really bind these assets to our business, our brand. That's where this list comes from. And I have narrowed this down year over year. I've gotten to the 10 that I really believe are your starting point for your points of consideration. And you see a lot of, you see the heritage players on here, you see the new, you see ones who are big firepower for big enterprises, but you also see ones that are highly nimble, highly flexible for those fast-moving organizations, because this is all about how do we deliver those digital experiences? How does DAM serve as that last mile? But more importantly, how does DAM fit into a really smart delivery of digital experience, no matter where that digital experience is originated? It doesn't have to be marketing. It could be a digital experience that is perhaps across product. Maybe it is coming out of sales. But that experience starts with the asset. And you better make sure that that asset is not only the right one, that is right for your brand, but that it's also right for your customer and for your market. And this idea of smart, this is where I want to actually dive in this ShortList Spotlight. Ooh, that was a mouthful. And I want to focus in on Brandfolder. Brandfolder is a digital asset management solution that several years back was picked up by and integrated into the Smartsheet family of solutions. And if you were a Smartsheet customer and you started to think about your user interface and started to think, wow, this looks really good, you got Brandfolder to thank for that. Brandfolder has long been considered one of the easiest to use, one of the easiest user interfaces. Really, you get in there, you know exactly where you need to go, and you know exactly what you need to start doing. The search has always been speedy and sharp. And now, thanks to AI, you are able to search for things. You are able to use your voice. You are able to have speech recognition that makes that search even more powerful and more valued by the user. When you start to think about Brandfolder, yes, it has all of the things, from usability, from the versioning, for the capacity to create all of those derivatives, to create those archival capabilities, it's there. It's there in spades. It's also really fast to set up. And that's the interesting thing, that when I speak with Brandfolder customers, it's probably one of the first things they mention, that in other instances where they have worked to set up a dam, even if it's in that kind of idea one of just storage, it takes time to set these up. This is not a set it and forget it. It's also not a dumping ground. You really have to be very intentional when you are setting up a dam. And yes, you have to have a strategy. But with Brandfolder, very easy to set up. The also professional services that not only come with Brandfolder, but also from Smartsheet, are also there to provide that expert guidance along the way, which is always very, very valued by those Brandfolder customers. But I gotta say, one of the things that stands out for me for Brandfolder is actually how seamlessly it integrates into Smartsheet and their idea and concept around intelligent work management. This elevates DAM to a very different level. Might even go past that big idea number 3. In fact, when you start thinking about how assets fit into projects, suddenly the work becomes very different. If you're working on a digital product, you're working on a mobile application, you're working on a mobile app for a healthcare system, you need to have very, very different controls. You have to have very different assurances. You have to have very different brand security measures. But you also have to make sure you have the rights to use that image of that family that just went to the doctor's office. You may have been using it on your app for years, but you might not have the rights to use that image today because you're revamping, you're reshaping. You got to also recheck. Brandfolder allows you to do that quite easily. And it also integrates all of those questions, all of those stages of the project. You can put that right into your sheet when you're managing that project from end to end. You're not having to swivel chair into different solutions. You don't have a different checklist. You don't have the checklist for the assets, the images, the creative, the workflow in that. You've got that. It's in Smartsheet. But also when it comes to Brandfolder, you do also have the capacity for that work. You have your superpowers that you can unlock. And there are those AI superpowers for, you have brand guidelines, you have the metadata, you can bring it all together. Then when you add on top of that, the strategic planning and the AI powered strategic planning that is capable in Smartsheet, you not only have that vision for what moves forward, you can quite literally see the assets that are tied to how that vision unfolds. Want to see what that building looks like at every stage and phase? You want to include all the CADs. You want to make sure that all of those visual assets are in one place and that you are tracking that data, that use, the costs, everything. That's where Brandfolder plus Smartsheet really starts to make a difference and really starts to attract the attention of users that are far beyond your traditional engagement and your traditional creative and asset resources. Smartsheet is one of a handful of really smart and intelligent DAM solutions that do seamlessly integrate and even have their own work management solutions, where all of those requests that are coming in for assets and iterations and revisions and renditions, those are handled through that solution so that the work of delivering these digital experiences isn't more work when you're trying to execute. That's why these types of solutions are so important. That's why enterprises are demanding that their DAM solutions are integrated with work solutions. And certainly Brandfolder is one of those. Easy to use, really nice UI. It takes a lot of the pain, a lot of the struggle, a lot of the feeling that you have to climb a hill just to be able to use it out of that solution, which also means that for folks who don't live in their DAM, who maybe just need a link to a portal for assets, they're having as easy of a user experience through that interface as folks who live in it all day long. Those are just a couple things that make this stand out for me. So as you're looking at the shortlist, be sure to look for those things that drive you from one maturity phase to another. Look for that smart application of AI. Look for that metadata. Look for that brand security and safety. But more than anything, make sure that you're thinking about DAM as more than a big bucket where you can store little folders. DAM is so much more. It is the last mile. And you know what? It's fun to talk about in meetings. Damn, it's pretty damn good.